audience so far. Well, so on behalf of the Australian-New Zealand chapter of the AI for LAM community, welcome to this morning's AI for LAM webinar that will focus on the AI Ambassadors program developed by the Australian Centre for the Moving Image, or ACMI, in Melbourne, Australia. I'm Basil Dewhurst from the National Film and Sound Archive of Australia, and with Rowan Henderson from the National Library of New Zealand, we'll be hosting today's session. Rowan, perhaps you'd like to say good day and offer a welcome from Aotearoa, New Zealand, before we kick off the presentation.
Great, thanks, Basil. Yeah, kia ora. Hello, everyone. My name is Rowan Payne. I'm coming to you from the National Library of New Zealand, Wellington, New Zealand. And I'd like to offer a welcome from this side of the Tasman. Kia koutou, ngā munga, ngā awa, ngā waka. Ngā tupuna o Aotearoa me te whenua moimoia e hui hui mai nei tēnā koutou katoa. To you, the mountains, rivers, waka, ancestors of Aotearoa and the land of the dreaming, Australia, and to those of you further afield that are gathered here today, greetings to you all. I'll hand back to Basil for acknowledgement of country.
Thank you. Thanks, Rowan. So today I'm joining you from Ngunnawal country, which is where Canberra is located. And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of all the lands on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Country is a word for all the traditions, values, places, resources, stories, and cultural obligations that are associated with a place, as well as its physical features. So I'd like to acknowledge the continuing connection of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to country and to these lands never ceded. So today we are recording the session and we'll be posting the session online afterwards. And I'd like to invite you all to use the chat function to introduce yourselves, perhaps indicate where you're coming from, and post any questions which we can pick up at the end of the presentation. So I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Jeff Williams. Jeff is the head of technology at ACMI and has diverse work experience in technology and operations. He's a leader in the arts and culture sector and a former NASA software engineer. Jeff leads AI initiatives at ACMI, driving education, adoption, experimentation, and cross-departmental efforts to explore and deploy AI in operations and in products. Jeff spoke at the Fantastic Futures 24 conference about the AI Ambassadors Awareness Program, and in the context of ACMI's institutional remit to collect and exhibit moving image media. But today he'll speak in more detail about the program, continuous learning, and ACMI's interest in enabling other organisations to learn from their experience. So without further ado, over to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Basil. Yeah, and so the talk today is a bit of a continuation of the presentation I gave at Fantastic Futures. One of the big kind of takeaways from presenting at that was a lot of kind of reflection and trying to understand why ACMI and how ACMI is positioned in order to be able to successfully do this work. And that's kind of also led to a lot of kind of thoughts and conversations about readiness and prerequisites. So this is kind of an evolved version based off a lot of those feedbacks, and I'm excited to share this stuff with you. And it's always changing. And beforehand, we were talking about kind of these programs are not easy. They might kind of be pretty easy to get launched and get them up and running, but this program I'm talking about today, we've actually been running for over about a year and a half now, and how to keep momentum and keeping people engaged in this is really challenging. So I just kind of want to acknowledge that a lot of this stuff is hard, and so with that, let me go ahead and get my decks up and running. Right, so the program is called AI Ambassadors. We've recently renamed it to be Artificial Investigators, and I will kind of go into that a little bit later. But the as I mentioned earlier, there's a strong it's really important I find to keep the programs and align it with the organization's mission. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. We'll talk about the foundations and the prerequisites for responsible AI usage, and we'll also go through some AI readiness and ACMI. I'm not going to go over ACMI's AI tools. I'm focusing more on the hard stuff and the people, and hopefully I'll try to leave some time for some good questions afterwards. And I'm going to really cruise through some of this deck. I'm not even, I'm going to, considering the audience today, I'm going to bypass stuff like definitions. I have left a couple of slides that I find that I show for kind of more non-technical people, and kind of easy takeaways, because I think sometimes like grounding things in real simple kind of bite-size nuggets are really helpful. I'm going to start with trying to kind of summarize kind of where I think AI is in the GLAM sector right now, because I think this is just kind of where I'm coming from. And I feel like there's been a ton of progress in the last 2 years here. And I feel like the sector knows how to enhance the capabilities to build great machine learning tools at this point. But staff, especially in the arts, are still reluctant and hesitant. And visitors are getting mad because they think the works that we're displaying are made using AI, regardless of they're not. And this is actually happening here at ACMI, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about that as well. And maybe mad's not the right word, but there are certainly some concerns there. So the so brief little bit about ACMI. ACMI is the Australian Centre for the Moving Image museum in Melbourne. We exhibit and collect and program films, TV, video games, art, social media, all types of digital media. And ACMI is a trusted technology forward institution that is leading innovation and experimentation by example. And machine learning is directly related to many of the mediums in our remit. And therefore, we feel like machine learning is something we must cover. So today I'm going to start with the organization culture and foundational work we've done, which allows us to do this work. ACMI's vision, mission, and values help provide some of the organization culture context. So we're really focused on literate and technology skilled watchers and players. Part of that education and skill and literacy is demonstrating these new trends and these new tools as they become available. And also here the technology and ideas to shape our future. We feel like we're already seeing machine learning kind of changing the way that we view media. I know at this point, almost anything I see on YouTube, have to try to figure out and understand if I think this is built with machine learning or not. And then if it is, like, how does it actually impact how I kind of view that stuff? So these are the things that we need to, our visitors, we need to instill into them. So furthermore, one of the ACMI's values is we embrace innovation and learn from experimentation. The AI Ambassadors, Artificial Investigators program is heavily involved on experimentation and learning through that. There's also an emphasis on legibility. And the last item that we have here, excuse me, is the way that we want to approach AI with integrity, transparency, and finally sharing that with our peers, which is what I'm doing here today. So thank you again for inviting me. With generosity, if there's any questions after this, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to meet and talk about this program. And if any of you are running similar programs and you're getting stuck and want to kind of brainstorm about how to get through things, please do reach out, and I'm happy to chat. So ACMI's culture is uniquely enables yeah, it uniquely enables leadership in AI experimentation and education. And and so this is some of that work I kind of mentioned, like what's kind of special and unique about ACMI, that's allowing us to kind of do a lot of this work. And as we've seen, innovation is part of one of our core values. I think this second bullet point here, which is really important and pretty unique for ACMI and most museums, is ACMI CEO is we have tech literate leadership. Our CEO is a former CTO with over 25 years of experience. So having executive level kind of understanding and leadership focused on technology has really enabled us to kind of build and experiment and learn that way, and then also um, to have programs internally like the one I'm talking about today, and having support across the organization to run those programs, because they do take time and they require resources and dedication and from all staff. We prioritize AI literacy, ensuring staff can critically evaluate and effectively integrate AI into their work. Transparency is a core value. We openly declare AI use, fostering trust with staff and audience, just as we do in our exhibitions. A lot of our exhibitions are based on kind of showing the inner workings of media and how things are made. And so that we are trying to use that same kind of transparency within machine learning and how we're using it. Increasingly, we're not only declaring when AI is used, but we're also declaring when AI is not being used. AI has also unlocked capabilities we've long sought. One of the first products that we've created was the ability for people to search inside of videos. This was something that we had been working on since 2017, and unable to build because the technology wasn't reliable enough then. So these new capabilities that are allowing our visitors and our staff to then search through videos and find stuff using these tools is wonderful. So this unlocking capabilities is something that we've long since wanted, is very very valuable. We have a strong emphasis on user-centered design. It's also integral to how we approach AI. Being intentional and purpose-driven ensures AI systems serve real needs effectively. I think that's very important. And lastly, knowledge sharing defines us as a government-funded institution. ACMI, we share our AI experiments to others. We have we have a blog called labs.acme.net.au. And then we're working to build sector capacity and engage audiences in meaningful discussions. And this culture of innovation, transparency, and education is why ACMI is able to do these kinds of programs. So the foundations for AI literacy and usage, and I'll kind of get into a little bit of these more, but these are kind of the underlying foundations that we're all building off of. And this is ethics, data privacy, governance maturity, evaluation processes, sustainability, infrastructure readiness, and risk management. Yeah, so this foundational work is ongoing and in support of and in parallel with AI training. We're always trying to do these things better, and there's definitely a bit of a feedback loop between this work across the organization and AI, and as we're using AI and learning and discussing it more, having to then kind of visit and reinform some of the conversations that we're having here. So at Acme, I've thrown together a bit of what I think this is kind of like our AI readiness checklist kind of at Acme, or this is like all the things that we're doing really to kind of prepare us. You'll see towards the bottom, we've got AI training program. That is this program, but all these other things are really important, probably just as important as the AI training program, and they're all kind of building on each other. So You can't really, in my mind, have an AI training program without a lot of these other things that prepare the organization. So the first one here is risk. Um, at ACMI, one of the first things that we did when we started kind of discussing and considering using AI was understanding was getting it as part of our risk register and understanding that it is a risk for the organization, and what we can do to kind of mitigate that. And I think that was kind of one of the first things that really kind of helped us kind of prepare usage for this. And with any kind of risk, you have a series of controls and treatments to help mitigate that risk. And risk management is very important, like organizational foundation, because while it may be very hard to establish an AI use policy because it's changing so fast, AI related risk can be managed via risk management policies and procedures. And these are existing kind of framework organizational governance that already exists. So ACMI uses existing risk management policies, frameworks, and strategies to manage the risk of AI usage, which allows us to discuss the risk across the organization, like we would all other risk, while the technology continues to rapidly evolve. And that's the one thing that's kind of exciting and challenging, really, about machine learning is how fast it's moving. And then we've had concerns about having policies that might be too strict and then restrict our usage, even though that usage might benefit the organization and our audiences because of these policies. So taking a risk approach was how we decided to kind of look at this. So, and if you're considering building, developing, or using AI and external tools, I highly recommend you start a conversation with your governance team to talk about risk. We've seen a lot of organizations release tools, and sometimes there's negative press that comes along with that. So I think understanding that and being prepared for that is really important. So I'll highlight some key takeaways throughout the presentation. And this is one of the first ones that I do to the organization is like discuss AI usage with your risk and governance team earlier. So one of the next things I want to talk about, and this is something that ACMI has been working on increasingly, is a public AI statement. This is another kind of prerequisite, and this is really helping, which kind of helps establish ACMI's kind of usage and stance on AI, why we're exhibiting it, why we're learning about it, why we're talking about it. And this is something that's also really helpful for all staff to understand, because I think that's and also visitors. So this is something that the ACMI is working on. This is really kind of helping us as we evolve and our usage and how we work with AI and machine learning is changing, to have like a public statement where we can point people to why we're working on this stuff and why it's important to understand. We've also been working on a AI and exhibitions framework. So this is kind of broken down into a couple of different approaches. This is like AI must always, AI must never, and the following must be considered. So I think this is another one of those things that we've been working on real closely. I'm not going to go into ACMI's framework here because I think it's going to be different for every museum, but this is another one of those pieces of the AI readiness kind of puzzle. Another thing that's I think is really important is training your leadership and making sure that people that are making decisions about machine learning and AI usage across the organization have the ethical courage and tools and experience to kind of make the right decision. there's a wonderful program called Krenlana, which I was the senior leadership sent me to about a year ago, that I highly recommend. I've got a little slide up here for it. But there's a handful of really wonderful kind of ethics training courses, and I think having these kind of foundation, this is another one of those kind of foundational things, is getting the people that are making some of the decisions and leading the conversations, making sure that they have, yeah, I think the word that Kunlani uses is courage, and I think that's a really great one. So having the ethical courage to make the right decisions. And then evaluation. This is something that's also really important. We've increasingly been doing visitor exit interviews and visitor feedback. We recently opened a show called Surwa by an artist named Surwa Atufe, The Darkness Between the Stars. You can see the work here, and you can see the work on the left. It does have a bit of a slight animation to it. You can't see that here because it's a still image. But because of that, and this is very stylized, like a lot of Gen AI works. So what I thought was really interesting is as you can see here, we've actually started kind of adding text on the walls and the didactics, even when AI is not in use. So there's explaining when it is used, I think was something that was expected, but visitors have been curious even when it's not in use. So we've started clearly on works that look like AI might have been used, clearly kind of identifying that. So in this work, there's a label here that says no part of the work was made using generative AI. So yeah, that's nuts. If you would have asked me a year ago if you would be putting that up with signed text, I would have been very surprised and said not likely. So it's really interesting that's kind of how we're doing. And that's because of the feedback that we're getting from visitors and from staff. So that's a bit of just moving on from the kind of chunk of the prerequisites and the work that we've done kind of to prepare this kind of training initiative. I'm going to flip over to that a little bit and go through that, and then hopefully we'll have some time for some questions. But the initiative at ACMI is to enhance staff understanding of AI through education. So from January of education and practical experimentation, I should add. So from January 2024, ACME has been running this initiative focused on removing really one of the barriers for adoption, which is understanding how AI works. So that experimentation is really kind of focused on trying to understand how things work in AI, so you can understand. Yeah, and I think understanding how AI works is very important. At ACME, we've adopted a 3-tier approach to AI to engage staff at different levels across the organization. First, we've got our AI ambassadors, artificial investigators. Sorry, I'm still having to change my brain. That's a recent name change. This is our fortnightly program where a diverse group of staff dive into AI discussions and hands-on experimentation. This helps deepen understanding and uncover new opportunities for AI at ACME. Talked a little bit at the front about how much work this takes. We've recently kind of reduced this to once a month. So initially last year we were meeting quite a bit. Now that we kind of have that kind of foundational knowledge, we've moved to more of a once a month model. And a lot of that's just to help kind of remove one of the barriers of participation, which is just workloads. Next, we have AI Lunch and Learn, which is a quarterly session open to all staff and board members. It's a space where AI ambassadors can share their insights and experiences, expand the conversation across the organization. And then lastly, we have our machine learning knowledge base. This is a resource that documents all the ongoing AI experiments. We have 28 projects so far, giving everyone access to explore what's happening and contribute to the learning process. And this 3-tiered approach ensures that everyone has a chance to engage with AI in a way that fits their roles and interests. So driving ACMI's three-tier approach are four key principles. These are educate, experiment, debate, and deliberate. We've talked a little bit about the importance of education and experimentation. I think the debating and deliberating are equally as important. Debating is about tackling the hard conversations, the hard and all of the attention that the AI is getting. So really kind of discussing that job displacements, copyright concerns, data sovereignty, AI unpredictability, environmental impacts, and more. And these are difficult topics, and the discussions can get heated, but they're very necessary. And the deliberate is kind of separate. I want to kind of separate that debating from the reflection, and I want to make sure that there's time to reflect and think critically about what we discussed before making any decisions. And these principles reflect ACME values. And it's really, I feel it's really important that when adopting AI, and it's really important to choose principles that align with your organization's values and ensure that that all voices are heard in this process. The AI Ambassador program is key to fostering continuous learning, experimentation, and debate across the departments. With regular meetings, staff can explore AI applications in their roles. So at ACME, the group includes about 20 members with typical attendance around a dozen. One important voice consistently represented is visitor experience. And I'd say we actively try to include non-technical staff members as well. The visitor experience offer like an invaluable insights into how visitors perceive and respond to AI in our programs. So this is very important to ACME. Yeah, and kind of as I just mentioned, it's just as important as it's to include pro AI and AI curious. I feel like it's most important to include staff that are anti-AI. Do not try to convert these team members, make them feel safe, and let them talk about their concerns and fears. Listen to them, acknowledge them, and then consider these voices when making policies. I think we also need to acknowledge when you're talking to people that 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 are that aren't pro AI. Acknowledge that these kind of conversations can be hard on them and can be very emotional. So I guess the flip side to this is listening to them is also give them space. And if they're not ready to talk about it, or if they don't know their feelings or can't really explain why, you can't be, you need to give them the opportunity to talk, but you also not need to give them the pressure to talk. So trying to find the right balance there is very important. Yeah, and I think the main thing is don't convert them. And I've mentioned a couple times about the name and changing the name, and that's because of what I was just talking about with people, including people that are not pro AI. The word AI ambassador kind of itself is a barrier. It inherently implies like a pro AI stance, which may discourage staff from joining or speaking out, especially those who are more skeptical. So, yeah, the point of the group really isn't necessarily AI adoption. It's really AI education, and we want everyone to understand how it works, regardless of their stance. So, we've recently changed the name to the Artificial Investigators, and we feel like that's it's a fun name, bit of a pun kind of, but really kind of better states that what we're doing here. We're not advocating for the use of AI. We're investigating how it works, how it might be used. So we feel like that's a better name. So this is a list of some of the sessions that we've run through. At a high level, we focus on three core areas: how AI works, how ACME should use it, and the challenges we face along the way. We've covered a range of topics from the mechanics of AI, like transformers and diffusion models, to ethical considerations around AI usage in exhibitions, Initially, sessions were heavily structured with formal presentations, homework assignments, and product reviews. This approach left little room for discussion and became a time burden. And it was clear that we needed to shift. So now meetings are more interactive, focused on specific areas while allowing plenty of time for open discussion, making the sessions more engaging. So we've got a rotating prisoners. This is what we've kind of found works best. So each session is led by one of a handful of presenters, focusing, allowing the different presenters to kind of discuss what their key focus is on. Some of those we've got an ethics and usage kind of presentation focus. We've also have one that's more technical, which is more non-technical, which demonstrates experiments that allow hands-on testing. And then we dig pretty deep into the technical side of it too. We'll pull up code, look at how that's working. I find that looking at code is even for people that have no experience, helps kind of show how tangible the behind the scenes workings are and what's actually kind of happening in these tools. So we've also simplified the structure by removing homework and we've dedicated, now we're dedicating 15 to 30 minutes for open discussion. This has led to like a more balanced sessions with greater participation and deeper conversations about AI. So some of the AI ambassadors have mentioned that the meetings don't always feel productive. And part of that's because we've met quite a bit last year. But I'll also argue that trying to make every session highly productive can be a barrier in itself. And so I want to remind everyone that this is a long-term journey, and showing up consistently, setting aside time to think about and talk about AI is part of that work. So the value lies in regular commitment, the experimentation, and even in the failed experiments. These sessions are not just about achieving results, they're about creating that space for discussion, debate, and reflection. It's in this ongoing dialogue that we advance our understandings and approach to machine learning. So I like to remind myself this and others that it's these meetings aren't a failure just because they don't produce outcomes. The process of engagement is what matters here. So through the regular discussions of AI, there's been a few key statements that I always use. You might recognize some of these from NFSA and Fantastic Futures. The first one that we talk about a lot and is really good for the group is, and others is Gen AI is not magic, it's maths. The one statement that comes and this an LLM is a language model, not a knowledge model. This was a quote that Stanford University team spoke at the Fantastic Futures last year, and it's been something that my team has really kind of focused on, which really kind of helps us stay grounded and understand, and also really kind of communicate some complex things in a really simple statement. And so this is kind of one of those key statements. And then the part of all of the training is also safety. A real basic statement that we use a lot is that assume what you put into AI tool will end up on the internet. And I'm not saying that it will, but if you kind of approach it with that, especially with data and privacy, it's a great place to kind of approach AI and when you're providing it with information. So which training sessions have been best? The ones that really kind of give a bit of hands-on experiments also are often a little bit light and funny, and are and kind of intriguing, I think are best. This is one of my favorite ones has been the I Am the Golden Gate Bridge, where the team like discussed how LO works and also looked at some of the basic of Anthropic's research, talking about how black boxes, how AI steals black boxes. I think there's at ACMI, I found that there was, in trying to explain it, we often simplified it too much by just describing it as AI as complex algorithms. But then this presentation, this article, really was helpful because it helped us understand that even the experts that are building AI tools are exploring why are still view these LLMs as black boxes. So basically, the project was, if you're not familiar with it, but Anthropic built a large language model that emphasized the parts of the neural network that are emphasized with the Golden Gate that were kind of that highlight the Golden Gate Bridge. And so then when you ask questions to the LLM with these kind of Golden Gate emphasis, the results were always swayed in that of the Golden Gate Bridge. So you could actually ask kind of who are you in it, and the Golden Gate Claude responded, "I am the Golden Gate Bridge." So this was a really important training session where we got to kind of play with these tools, read the articles, but then also kind of understand the complexity even for those that built it, which is really which is grounding, because as we're trying to understand it, understanding that those that built it are still also trying to understand it is really powerful. And it also kind of gave us an understanding of how possible things like bias might be able to be resolved at some point. If you can emphasize things and highlight them in the outputs, and they're amplified in the outputs, what can you de-emphasize things and remove things from the outputs? And then we also had a wonderful talk, and this is directly following NFSA and the NFSA presentations at Fantastic Futures. We looked at an AI ambassador meetings about ICIP data sovereignty and Notebook LM. Notebook LM is a tool that, and this is kind of a good way to, I'd say, experiment without having software developed tools in-house. So Notebook LM is a tool in which you can upload articles or YouTube presentations, and it will automatically build you a podcast. So that's what we actually did during this session. We found a couple of articles, built a podcast forum, including one of those was the Peter Lucas Jones talk from NDF in 23. And then as a group, we listened to the outputs of this AI tool, which was this podcast, and then discussed kind of how it made us feel. And it was a really interesting, it was a really powerful, because while what was spoken in the outputs of this AI tool weren't necessarily incorrect, the vibe that it gave, especially with considering the content and the sensitivity of the content, left a lot of basically left everyone in hearing it. We didn't feel good about it, and I guess it's because the training data for building these podcasts were what sounded like very American, bubbly kind of white personalities, and making jokes and kind of light the light kind of making light of I don't know. It was really interesting, because it kind of made you realize that, like, how important context is. And yeah, so that was a really powerful AI ambassadors meeting. And like I said, one of the things I really liked about this one is because we actually were able to build the tools and experiment in the room together. So the AI Ambassador Group results have been pretty great so far. But better understanding of AI fundamentals. We have increased use of AI tools in daily tasks, enhanced methods for testing, more discussions around AI ethics and usage, and then yeah, and we're expanding testing across all staff, and not just AI ambassadors. Um, so kind of on the lessons learned, I think the diverse non-technical views are crucial. Um, Constituents, a constant engagement and focus is essential, and I find it really important to revisit key topics frequently, as AI opinions evolve fast. Um, and finally, time commitment is a big factor, and we've reduced the workload to make participation more manageable for everyone. The AI Lunch and Learn series is another key part here, of our education program. This is held 4 times a year, and these sessions provide an informal space for staff and board members interested in AI but unable to commit to the AI to the artificial investigators more regular meetings. We've had an average attendance of about 41 staff per session. These meetings have become a great platform for AI ambassadors to share their work, and discuss AI topics with a wider team. And we've covered topics from how AI works to ethical frameworks to experimental tools and demonstrations. We've demoed collections chats to all staff and given them hands-on in the room and discussed the outputs. So it's been the Lunch and Learn has been another great, very accessible one. And so that example I just gave with the collections chat, there was this was a kind of a meeting where we walked through kind of how it was built, where AI was used, where AI is not used, and then there was a live demonstration. The session followed 2 weeks of staff testing, the chatbot internally, plus a public demo during an open house. And we logged all interactions to better understand its use and effectiveness. In this meeting, we explained embedding search, retrieval augmented generation, and prompt engineering, the 3 techniques used in the chatbot to inform it about ACMI in our collection. And then, like I said, we did a live demo followed by an open discussion. And this gave staff hands-on experience with how AI can use to make our collections more accessible. And I really like this one because we explained how it worked. We had a demo of it, and then we discussed it afterwards. So it was a very good, and that kind of model is one that I try to kind of reproduce when in scheduling things. So the AI Lunch and Learned, yeah, so I found that like a 50-50 balance in presentation is really important. There's a lot of discussions, and so make sure there's a lot of questions, so make sure there's a lot of room for those discussions. Pairing explanations with live demonstrations makes the tech easier to understand. I think just talking about giving technical diagrams doesn't make sense to a lot of staff until they can actually see it working. And finally, clear, concise explanations, showing the application code when necessary, demystifies AI, making it more accessible to everyone. Then the third part of our approach to AI is our machine learning knowledge base. This is a shared resource at ACMI, allowing all staff to explore current AI experiments and contribute to the learning process. The central repository ensures everyone from technical to non-technical staff have access to ongoing AI projects, fostering collaboration and knowledge sharing across the organization. So the machine learning knowledge base has been a valuable tool for sharing these experiments with all staff. And what we've learned is it's regular internal communication is critical. It helps us keep staff informed. Making the knowledge base accessible to everyone gives all staff a chance to explore, learn, and engage with the experiments. This openness helps demystify AI, and it's also an opportunity to explain the purpose and clearly explain why these experiments matter. So when staff see how AI tools can be applied to their work, they're more likely to engage and contribute ideas. So overall, all these programs and initiatives have been very rewarding. The technologists may still be building the tools for now, but staff across ACME have a better understanding of how it's built and why it works the way it does. And so some of the key takeaways I have for other organizations are create tiered AI education programs, implement a structured approach to meet varying levels of staff engagement, ensuring everyone can learn about AI regardless of their technical background, promote hands-on experiments, encourage staff to experiment with AI tools to build confidence and discover practical applications for their roles. It's like there's a bit of a training there, obviously, that's necessary so that people can do that safely. But experimentation is really important and a great way to learn. Um, Facilitate ethical AI discussions and provide space for staff to debate the ethical implications of AI to align its use with the organization's values and missions. Engage multiple departments, involve staff from all organizations, not just tech teams, and then invest in AI education to equip staff with the skills for long-term AI integration, driving both efficiency and innovation. Um, the AI tools and use cases are improving rapidly, and the sooner you start the education, your organization, the sooner they'll be prepared to understand how and where to best use these tools. And to success of a couple more bullet points to kind of wrap up here. Inclusivity is crucial. So ensure your initiatives include those with concerns about AI, not just the advocates. Diverse perspectives enrich discussion and help organizations remain grounded while addressing the ethical, cultural, and operational challenges. I encourage you to develop an AI education program that reflects your organization's vision, mission, values, and culture. This alignment ensures that AI literacy and usage support your strategic goals and maintain consistency with your identity. And then align the AI usage and tool with your organization's risk profile. So AI adoption should be treated like any other organizational risk, carefully evaluated and managed to ensure responsible and effective implementation. And I think this, balancing risk and experimentation is essential when working with AI. At Acme, we've learned that managing risk isn't about avoiding experimentation. It's about doing it responsibly. We treat AI risk like any other organizational risk with clear frameworks to identify, evaluate, and mitigate risk. Transparency is also a key. Declaring when and how AI tools are used fosters trust among staff, stakeholders, and audiences. We recognize that experimentation comes with uncertainty and not every trial will succeed, but that's part of the process. Failed experiments provide valuable insights that help us refine our approach. And by anchoring AI initiatives in our mission and value, we ensure that these tools enhance accessibility, effective efficiency, and impact rather than creating unnecessary risks. So, and the AI tools are advancing quickly, and the sooner you start your education programs, the better prepared they'll be for understanding and leveraging AI for your needs. So with so that's I'd like to I think we hopefully Basil, we've got some time to do some questions now.
We do. Thank you, Jeff. That was awesome. I really like how you've created, a seemingly safe space for people to discuss these technologies. We've certainly at the NFSA hit, resistance and that sort of thing when talking about these. So what an awesome model that you've developed. If people would like to pop any questions in the chat, that would be fantastic. And we can have Jeff tackle them. I had a question for you, Jeff. I guess if you're offering access via the ambassadors program to, to all staff, from everyone from the coalface up to the board, I'm wondering how has this changed conversations about the these technologies in the organization? Have you seen a change in those conversations over time?
I have. It's been slow and gradual, so it's kind of hard to recognize it, right? Just because at this point we've been meeting for about a year and a half now. So it's to me it's not really until kind of afterwards you reflect back on, wow, that was actually a really interesting conversation that we just had, and thinking through the fact of like all of the education and thoughts and training that's gone into it. Like we have a much deeper understanding of how things work. So we're no longer kind of exploring like how things work. We're actually able to kind of talk about why things are hard, or um yeah, how things are impact staff. And so it's it's kind of, it's hard to measure, and it's just more of a feeling, but the conversations are a lot more richer. um yeah, and you realize that no, we've been discussing this a lot, and it's kind of paying off.
Yeah, I can imagine that, the early conversations were very much focused on the nuts and the bolts and how the machine works, if you like. But hopefully, and it sounds like this is what you've achieved. You're getting to more of those conversations about, the why and the ethics behind using these
Yeah.
technologies and so on.
I find myself talking less, which is good.
Ah,
Like, right, you want, like, yeah, I would love it if I didn't talk at all, and the whole group was all coming up with great, was really understood things, and there weren't even questions about how it's built, right? And I think that's kind of where we're starting to get to, which is really exciting.
Rowan, over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, just echo Basil's sentiment. Really fantastic program, really interesting talk. I guess one question I had was, what sort of themes in the feedback have you got from the staff as a whole through their some of those debates and discussions? And have you surveyed staff outside of the feedback you're getting through the program? Just interested to know what kind of issues are coming up most for staff.
We do survey staff, but and not specifically about AI, but just our kind of our regular people and culture surveys. AI usage does come up, right? It's it's like we work in arts, and there's a lot of concerns about AI in the arts, and that is reflected in that feedback. So that's something that's really important to be aware of and consider. Um, because we haven't exhibited tons of AI, but it's just we have exhibited some, and we are using tools to help kind of using machine learning to help open access, collection access, right? So these are things that we do have built, and we have yeah, and yeah, and there are definitely mixed feelings about those tools. Um, and so I felt like I missed the first part of that question there, Rowan. Could you,
All good. Yeah,
yeah.
I guess because I'm at the National Library, we are. Um, uh, I've been involved in proposing an AI working group for the library, which is somewhat on a hold at the moment because we're going through a massive organisational change. But I guess I'm interested in what issues staff have expressed in these sessions and these discussions about. I mean, I know generally in the sector the types of fears and pushback that staff and the sector as a whole, GLAM sector as a whole, have expressed around these tools. Things around replacing aspects of their roles and other issues that come up. And I just sort of interested if there's anything in particular that has been expressed
Yeah.
in those discussions that you could highlight.
Yeah, one thing that's been a really interesting conversation lately is talking about how the AI algorithm, if you will, kind of smooths out and kind of all of it really it kind of squashes knowledge, and it's just like all of the kind of really interesting information that might not be documented in these the underlying training data. It's not being informed. It's like, I mean, it's AI is kind of statistical prediction. And so it kind of replicates kind of the same kind of average, which is ignores a lot of the really interesting stuff in the peripheral. Um, so I think these are the kinds of it's like, and especially with like not really knowing what's in some of the training data sets, with people not with not being disclosed for a number of reasons.
Sure, the lack of
Yeah,
transparency of these
yes,
black boxes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So these are a lot of the kind of conversations that I think are really interesting, and um, it's funny. It's like in the group, there's definitely a bit of a cycle where a lot of people have used OpenAI, ChatGPT for writing and stuff at this point, but most of them are actually not using it anymore. Like, because as you learn more about it, you actually realize how bad it is, at where it's good and where it's actually really not good.
Interesting.
And so these are cycles of like, at first I thought like, oh, you'd use it more when you understood how it works. But no, actually I find out that people are using it less when they understand how it works.
More selectively.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, with no further questions in the chat, I think, and noting the time, I think we might close today. Jeff, thank you so much for your presentation. I found it really inspiring, and that community work that we were talking about, I guess before the session, is so important. I think to be helping people along with these technologies. I guess I'd like to encourage people to visit any of the links that we've shared. Thanks to Ingrid and Sarah for their help with the with the behind the scenes work. And let's see. Yeah, I guess I'd like if you could. You're most welcome to visit any of the links, and I encourage you to visit the AI for LAM uh, um, Slack channel. And I also wanted to note that we've got the British Library hosting this year's, the 2025 Fantastic Futures Conference in December. So the call for papers for that is open if people would like to contribute. And if you have yourselves any projects that you'd like to showcase or present, we're most happy to use this forum to promulgate those. So thanks once again, everyone, for today. And thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, everyone.